Hi, Ferdinand, how are you?
Hello, good morning, Engineer Obire. Oh, it's not morning anymore. It's good
It's
afternoon.
afternoon. Good afternoon. How are you?
How are you? It's very
I'm doing
nice.
all right.
It's nice to see you. I've heard so much about you all this time from Dr. O. I finally get to meet you. I'll be on a COVID restricted Zoom. So how has your time in England been? Has it been okay?
Yeah, it's been very restful. A time of trying to, I'm a man of, I do a lot of research and I think a lot. So, I mean, always wanting to do new things. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
look forward to doing new
So
things in yeah,
I've
that,
heard
that's
it, but I know so much about you. I feel as if I know you better, better than somebody who's been living with you. Dr. O told me absolutely wonderful things about you, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to talk to somebody like you for the generality of Africans as well as for diasporans. To know that in spite of all the bad news that people keep hearing, there are actually good things happening on the ground.
yeah,
And somebody like you with the record that you are building would be a perfect example of the good things that are going on.
thank you
And
so
there's
much.
nothing better than to meet the person who is responsible for all these things and speak to him in real terms. So that is the reason I've been pressing Dr. O ever since she told me about it. Would be a wonderful person to put on an interview. So I prepared some questions that I thought would be helpful to both um, ordinary Africans and those of us who have been in the diaspora for quite a long time, so that you can expand on what's going on in Nigeria, what you're doing, all the wonderful things that I say that I've heard about. And hopefully people will learn a little bit about what's possible in terms of investment in real estate, especially, but any other information that you can let us have to help us make decisions as we go along.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, we'll just get into it right away.
Okay.
All
Okay. Thank you.
right. So my first question is, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Not
Okay.
not for me. I've heard everything I want to hear, but obviously there are people out there who have never heard about you. So this is for them.
Okay, I'm Emmanuel Obire. I'm a structural engineer by training. I had my engineering training in the University of Benin in Lagos. I mean, in Benin, Nigeria, and
Right,
I graduated in 1987. And
right.
and one of the first things at least, I mean, I've been graduated. I worked in an engineering consulting firm, Morgan and
Mm-hmm.
Merton, as an associate, where I became an associate in the business. I was quite fortunate to be exposed to big infrastructure projects early in my career, and I
Right.
moved from engineering consulting to construction with a
Mm-hmm.
brief stint in banking. Banking, not as a banker, but to help them open branches, as an engineer. And then
All right.
yeah, and then I ran George Wimpy Nigeria, the Nigerian subsidiary of Wimpy UK, for 7 years as the general manager, stroke CEO, and then I started the development business. So that's the development business, multipurpose infrastructure, MIDC, which has also been able to uh, produce several other subsidiaries that are doing their own thing independently of the parent company. So I see the business as an incubator to create value in the housing market. So that's for
Right.
me. It's an incubator. We create. It's an ideas bank. That's where I look at what I do right now. Put the ideas together, push it to the subsidiaries to drive the vision.
Right.
Mm.
Uh, yeah. Well, you've actually preempted my second question because now we know when you started. What were your earliest influences in the industry?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
What were your earliest influences? What was it that motivated you to get into the industry as such?
You know, interestingly, there are two aspects. One is the fact that, I mean, when after the first 3 years in the consulting firm, I went out to Germany and to do a postgraduate program in Hamburg. And one of the things in Technical University in Hamburg, and one of the things that I found very interesting was the level of infrastructural development. And I also remember what someone said to me in the course of what we're trying to do. He said, look, a building behaves the way you want it to behave. That is to say that, you know, in anything, in engineering structures, the way it's we were taught in the university is that, look, you know what, these are formulae. If you're going to design a structure, you work according to this formula. So you are limited by the formula. But I got another understanding of that, you know, when the gentleman said, look, the structure does not dictate to you how it ought to behave. You have to tell it what you want it to do. Meaning that, look, it is to the extent of how far you're going to dream that you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. You can build anything, just about anything you want. All you need to do is, once you decide what you want to do, you can then create the mathematical model that will make it happen. So that kind of, you know, made me realize that there's much more than what I'm doing. And when I got back, I left the consultancy firm after a couple of months, because I realized that, look, you know what, because I was on a sabbatical from the office, that, look, what I've come to understand is beyond the normal, you know, I mean, in engineering consultancy, we draw a lot of lines, we do a lot of calculation. That development goes beyond all of that. Those are the rudimentary things that you need to make it happen. But first of all, you have to be a dreamer for the development itself to happen. You know, and I was quite fortunate, you know, in the early years that I had the opportunity to work on mega projects like the mobile headquarters. I was the resident structural engineer at such a young age that responsibility was thrust on me as the resident structural engineer, and I supervised the project right from, you know, the foundation all the way to the entire superstructure. I also had the opportunity of working on two other projects: the Russian embassy, and that's the permanent residence. I mean, it's a permanent embassy, and the Unipetrol building, which is now called Zenon House. I was actually on that site as a resident engineer, so I had the opportunity of seeing these mega structures early in my career. And that kind of made me realize that, look, you know what, these things are not rocket science. They're actually brick and mortar built by ordinary men like you and me. So those kind of things inspired me a lot, you know. So, and I realized that, and then later on, I also began to realize that, look, you know what, working in infrastructure as well, as MD of George Wimpy, I had the opportunity of working on a mega dam project, you know, in Ekiti State. And yeah, mega dam project, you know, is an irrigation project and also has capacity to generate electricity, then builds a couple of roads and all of that. So I know for development, the major components of the development are the housing and the infrastructure. So seeing housing and infrastructure, you know, in different, you know, in my different exposures, I realized that, look, you know what, I have a passion to build cities, because those are the major components of a city project: infrastructure, housing, and transportation. So by the time you put everything together, you have a community. So those are the influences that I had, and that kind of inspired me, you know, to say, look, you know what, you can actually do development, you know, that is world class, you know, with the experience you have, you know. So it's been a passion. And you know, let me tell you something. One very interesting thing. As a little child, I had this passion also. As young as age of 9, I used to assemble boxes. You know, I go pick boxes, you know, and then, you know, design them into homes. Actually, build homes with those boxes. You know, my parents used to wonder, what kind of child is this? I go, you know, I mean, I kept to myself a lot. You find me hiding under the bed, building houses, and even supplying electricity to the houses using the dynamo of the toys, you know, they buy for us, this automatic cars and all of that. And you know, I always had that passion. And I realized that, look, you know what, this is what I'm called for. housing, not just as a single project. I've done construction individually, but I want to build cities. I began to see, the possibilities that existed. Unfortunately enough, just to add to this, opportunities started coming. I met this group, Top Housing of Sweden. They actually they have this material called what's it called, the fiber reinforced cement. So they wanted to come. They had a project in Nigeria. First, the Swedish embassy in Abuja and a hotel in Port Harcourt, the Juanita Hotel in Port Harcourt, which later became a Holiday Inn. So I was fortunate to meet them, and they chose us as their local partners. Because those components are assembled in Sweden, fabricated in Sweden. Then they now work with a local contractor to do the civil works and to assemble. So for me, that was the major thing that was the eye opener for me, because I now realized that prefabrication is the way to go, and you can actually assemble homes, efficient homes. So I mean, working on the Swedish embassy in Abuja, the Dutch embassy in Abuja, and the Juanita Hotel in Port Harcourt as the local contractor, as civil contractor. For me, that was actually the point I realized that, look, you know what, better give it a shot and get on with it. So that's, for me, was those are the inspirations that I received. And I was fortunate to have an opportunity to express that,
Listening to you, I get the impression as if everything went smoothly, because it sounds like right from infancy, you knew exactly what you were going to be doing. I mean, the story you tell about building structures with boxes is just fascinating. I'm sure all children who have that inclination are going to be fascinated by that little nugget there. But let me ask you, because I imagine that so far you have been building and undertaking all these activities with larger companies, with major individuals and so on. But was it difficult then to establish yourself in the industry in your own terms?
Yeah, I mean, like everything you do, especially in an emerging economy like ours, one of the major challenges is being able to find, because the development business requires financing. And initially when I started, it was, thank God for the things I know today, but quite a number of this, it's because the development process is a value chain. You have the demand side, which is the buyer of the home. You have the supply side, which is our job. And then you have one very vital bit, end user finance, which also supports construction finance. In the market at that time, there was no construction finance. Or if it was available, it was available at crazy interest rate, 27 to 30%. And the banks were not willing to fund real estate assets. And then in addition to that, the mortgage market was not very deep and not well established. But that was not even a deterrent, because so I did a hybrid of construction and small development on the sideline. So I was fortunate to be given the opportunity to work on the first mall in Nigeria, the Mega Plaza. Yes, I actually was the designer and the contractor for the Mega Plaza and the first multi-level car park in Nigeria. So I met a gentleman, Alon Nelken, who believed so much in my ability as a structural engineer, because I designed that structure, and he gave me the opportunity to build. So I mean, that kind of also helped me a great deal in getting some form of head start into the development business. And funny enough, I started out in the first development project I worked on, was a housing project. But my experience in Mega Plaza, as a business owner, you realize that when I was in George Wimpy, I was working with a team, so I was part of a larger team, but I was the CEO. But owning a business of my own and starting afresh, Mega Plaza was a kind of stabilizing factor for me. So people now began to say, "Oh, you mean this was done by a Nigerian?" They began to give opportunities. Yeah, and then that was for me. That was it. So I would say that yeah, it was tough initially, but I was not even looking at difficulties. I was looking at the possibilities. So I was not
Uh,
faced. I was not faced at all.
listening to your comments about Mega Plaza and all of these iconic structures that we heard about in several decades ago, and the fact that you were heavily involved in their construction. I'm just wondering, how is it that you've managed to maintain such a low profile that your name has not been said? What is it that you are a very retiring gentleman? Are you very quiet? Your name should be all over the place like Dangote and all these people.
No. One of the things that I've come to realize is that um, for someone like me, I actually focus on. I mean, I don't like because what I found out over the years is that look, maybe I'm not cut for it. By my nature, I just want to get the job done. I just want to
Right.
get the job done. I'm not looking for the I'm not looking for the publicity. I mean, I see a lot in the market today, lots of development companies, their logos here and there. But I mean, when I get the opportunity to talk to people about what we've done and what we're doing, it's like, look, we don't even know about you. But the truth is that
Yeah.
the market, wherever you go in the market, when you mention that, I mean, when you mention your name to them, you had the engineer Obire. Oh, wow. Oh, it's nice meeting you. I've been looking forward to meeting you. But for me, I actually spend a lot of my time thinking. My greatest hobby is
Mm.
creative thinking. So I spend a lot of time doing research on how to make housing better, how to solve the problem in the housing market. So that occupies my time a lot. I guess that's why. And then
That's
I'm not very sociable.
absolutely wonderful to hear. So, for the benefit of prospective entrants into the business of property development, what would you say are the are the three best things you've learned that you would wish to pass on? Because I imagine listening to you for the past 25 minutes, I I get the impression there's such a wealth of knowledge hiding in your head there. I would love to be able to sit down with you one day and get it all out. Let's say three things that you would want to pass on to anybody who's interested in this
in,
property
in,
development
in the market or generally?
generally,
I think number one is to
with
have
reference to the Nigerian market, of course,
yeah,
and ultimately
essentially,
the African market as
oh,
well.
okay, essentially what you need to first of all establish is your target market. If
Mm-hmm.
you don't, you need to have a target market. You need to, because when you establish a target market, you then have to then look at in that target market, you then have to do a lot of research as to what that target market requires in terms of the pricing, in terms of the demographics, and then
Mm-hmm.
that will then inform the kind of you know product you put into the market.
Right.
There are instances where for based on my experience in the market, lots of people actually think of people have lofty dreams as to what they want to buy as a home. But the
Mm.
fact is that their income level can't support it. So you
Yeah.
have to be able to understand what their needs are and also be able
Mm.
to let them understand that, look, this is what you can safely afford. And you must also let them know that the fact that you own a home of this size today does not mean you can't migrate to something better, 5 years down the line. That you have to be realistic, start with what you can afford, and then move up gradually. Then second thing is you must also understand the complexities of the development market. You see, you can't successfully do development if you don't understand some basic aspects of it. One aspect is you don't build on scale.
Right.
You don't build on spec. I meant to say spec.
Oh, yeah. On speculation.
Yes. So you must find an exit. So once you deliver your houses, someone must be ready to take you out. I've made mistakes in times past. I wouldn't tell you that, I've not made mistakes. A lot of things that we're doing today, we learned from the mistakes of the past. I've been involved in projects where we raise money, we build the project, and then we're waiting for people to come buy the houses. You know what that does to you? It can actually wreck the business. So now, so you have to find a way by which, so you must understand the complexities of the market, which is how the demand side will execute once you build a project. And then and then finding the appropriate construction finance will be dependent on the end user and end user finance. So you must understand the complexities of end user financing vis-a-vis the production of the homes. And then thirdly, a lot of R&D. R&D because you can't build the same way we used to build. You must look at how you can produce houses, on scale. Then also, looking at appropriate. Look, most of the designs we build today, most of the homes we build, the architects are great, but guess what? We do the design. I mean, I do most of the designs in terms of when I say do the design, actually conceptualize the designs based on exposure and experience that one has had, and then find the architect that can get into my heart, into my mind or into my head to actually understand what I'm thinking about. So most of the designs that we build today are designs originating from what I've been able to put together, and they are always a big, a winner in the market any day. That's so it all boils down to passion. I'm not into the housing market. Money is the main thing. It's one of the things at the end of the day. But for us, the money is not the primary thing. It is being able to create a housing conveyor belt that addresses the needs of the market. That's basically how I've seen and then I see property as a commodity. I see homes as a commodity. You turn it out like a manufacturing plant. You think of a factory, a company that produces milk, an essential like milk. They roll it out on a conveyor belt. So they are not emotional about it. Some people tell, when you build, hold something. There's a model we run. Let's produce the homes. There are homes we build to hold for inventory, but when we're building, we just roll out the homes, not to hold inventory, but to satisfy the needs of the market. That's the way we put it. So I always said that for me, housing is a commodity. That's the way I see housing. To me, it's not something you hold on to as a developer. Treat it as a commodity. It's rolled out from a factory to the end user.
That's amazing. Given the significance that we Africans tend to attach to property and the number of buildings that we have, I'm quite fascinated to hear you say that you've transcended that to get to the situation where you look at development as though they're just a milk product, you have a production line. Which tells me that you have, because you have built so much in volume, you're not phased anymore at that property and all its intricacies. And that's amazing, because obviously, because you've done it so often, it is no longer that daunting to you. And I hope that people listening to us will see that even that is possible. Because if you really think about it, for the average African, your most important asset is your home. Now here's somebody who's built so many of these things. He thinks it's just that's fascinating. All right. So my next question is that, from your point of view, what are the opportunities and challenges that are inherent in the Nigerian property market in relation to both the developer and the ultimate purpose of the end product? So the developer like yourself, I imagine that because you've been in the business for so long, you know your way around it.
Yeah.
But for somebody, for instance, who's coming in now, what would you say to them? These are the challenges, so be careful, and so on and so on. And then, in respect of the ultimate purpose of your developed product? What are the challenges that they would have to contend with?
Okay, one major challenge which I've already, I think I touched on it earlier in the market, in the Nigerian market especially. I mean, with special emphasis on the main markets, Lagos and Abuja, is finding the right kind of land,
right?
Which is it's a major problem. It's a major problem because
When you say the right kind of land, what do you mean? You mean in terms of tenure or in terms of
security of title, security of title, security of
okay.
title. Because you see, what we found out in Lagos is that a lot of the land in Lagos, at least 70% of it, though there is what you call the land use decree that confers ownership of land, all land, that vests ownership of all land in the country in the federal government. Then the government then gives you a leasehold for 99 years. Now, in spite of that law that's in place, pre-1977, when that law was enacted, that decree was enacted, a lot of land were customary, held by large land owning families. So even if government, gives land to you, you still have a challenge of having to go pay the customary owners, original customary owners, because when you get into the land to go build, they will stop you. The government can give you the COO, but it's a more secure parcel of land anyway. But if you buy from the private people, there's a lot of sharp practices in it. So I mean, I have a project that we're working on right now. We bought the land 11 years ago, and for about 7 years we couldn't people move into the land, because after paying for the land, another group came and said that they are the original owners of the land, and it took about 7 years to resolve the issue before we could start. So, but yeah, 7 years. So what we then decided to do was that going forward, since we are building on scale and we are addressing a major need in the market, going forward, we're going to work with government on private partnership, private-public partnership basis, because you can't find land on scale except you work with government. Yeah, if you're going to work with the customary owners, you must bring government into it in one way or the other, so that you have some form of security of title. So land is a major challenge, which you must find the right kind of land to use. Then, like I said earlier, you need to also understand end user financing. What I mean by that is that, you see, end user financing comes in form of mortgage. The bulk of the market, if you look at it, the property market is like a pyramid. The housing value, it's like a pyramid. The top of the pyramid is quite thin. That's where you have the very few, the 1%. But a lot of the demand is towards the bottom of the pyramid, middle towards the bottom. We talk about a deficit of 22 million people, or 22 million homes in the market. Well, where do you have the bulk of this deficit? So you must understand, that segment. That's what I keep saying about. What I keep saying about market segmentation. You must understand where you want to play, because if you don't understand where you want to play, you could actually run into trouble. Today, because of the economic situation, over the last, I won't say today, over the last 7-8 years, we've done a lot of work with the Federal Mortgage Bank, National Mortgage Financing Corporation. I was actually involved in putting together something for Lagos State Government, the Lagos Public Housing Initiative. And government over the years have been trying to build houses. And I said to myself, look, you know what? You can't build homes without addressing the end user finance. We've even had meetings with the African Development Bank, on possibility of providing end user finance through mortgage banks directly, because the Federal Mortgage Bank that was created to provide end user finance is also challenged in terms of its capital base and the ability to finance. Now, even if you have primary mortgage, the key ingredient to sustaining the mortgage business is refinancing. There must be a secondary mortgage provider, which that duty is being handled by the NMRC, the Mortgage Financing Corporation. So when you create mortgages, there must be a way by which you can, securitize it, sell it off, and get more cash to keep funding. But these key institutions are disjointed. There is no coordination between them. So the Federal Mortgage Bank gets its money from compulsory deduction from wages of workers. It gets annual funding from government, from budgets, which is never enough. So, for instance, they get about 80 billion, 100 billion a year. Meanwhile, the market needs at least 1 trillion every